Ed Martin is hunting Adam Schiff. That's good news. He's our special prosecutor. He's like our Jack Smith, only he's not evil. He's not a liar. He's not doing it just as a partisan hack. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Shout out to the Quad Club. You guys are my company until the beloved Miss Snaple returns on Saturday from Japan with my son. Ooh, the heartache without her. Some of you are without your loved ones permanently, and you're someone who I pray for. And I read in the Bible this morning how God is our salvation. One day, if I ever found myself alone again, it would be, I would go insane without God. So that's my prayer for you too. Here's Ed Martin on the Matt Gaetz Show, just destroying Adam Schiff.
You've said in other interviews that current Senator from California, Adam Schiff, may have destroyed evidence as part of his role in the January 6th committee when he was in the House. Why is this concerning to you?
Well, look, first of all, as you know, Matt, the scope of my work here at the Department of Justice has included investigating January 6th, investigating the 2020 election and how it's treated. But in this case, what we have is people actively destroying documents that have an impact on cases that were before the courts, that were in the courts. So, for example, the Select Committee on January 6th announced publicly that they had 2 or 3 divisions. They hired investigators, in fact, including a former member of Congress, and they had them investigate these divisions. These are right. So, and then when they went to do their final report, all the research disappeared. All the research went away. When Adam Schiff, what has come out publicly, not from me, again, his lawyers are commenting on it, what has been disclosed about his leaking, how he's talked about his leaking, destruction of documents. These are all things that are way beyond any defense. You know this, Matt, you were there. You have a defense constitutionally for, speech and debate. That has to do with your job. It doesn't have to do with all the conduct that you do. And by the way, there's an exception for felony misconduct also in there. So,
oh, that's a hint. They're going to get him on a felony. So there's an exception for them to go after him on a felony. They're going to get him, this guy. Okay, just so you know, so 2 facts we know about Adam Schiff. Number 1 is they made evidence disappear from official congressional investigation. This is regarding January 6th and the first Trump impeachment, trying to get him for insurrection. That's number 1. So they made information that would make them look bad disappear, or perhaps help the other side, which is normally what you do on these kinds of cross-examinations. You want the strongest information coming out for both sides. They removed the strongest information that would defend Trump or weaken their own case. Number 2, what he did was he leaked his own propaganda out to the media. So he put out a brand new narrative that may not have been, well, now we know it was not rooted in truth, and he pushed that out to the public. So that's what the Democrats do with their congressional power and their special investigations and all of their government. This is what people are voting for them for. And they've thrown their oath of the Constitution to uphold it out, because they're here to remove information that helps a political opponent, and they're here to present and make up information and roll it out through the media that helps their case. Invention helps their case.
We're going to get to the bottom of it. I think Senator Schiff has attacked me and others so vociferously, you start to say, what's the problem here? If you're innocent, let's see what you've got, and we'll see what happens.
I am probably one of only 6 or 7 congressmen or former congressmen that has gone through those files from the January 6th committee. And here's what I can tell you you're going to find when you and your team really get into that. They tracked so purposefully how any of their targets spent money, moved, and communicated. I mean, like, I was going through files that you could see where Bernie Carrick bought a cup of coffee in DC, rest his soul. And there you could see where Charlie Kirk had got a van for people who wanted to come to the Capitol on that day, or a bus. But then there were some files with some of their targets that were just totally empty. I opened the Steve Bannon file and it was completely empty. And what I think is so interesting about your response is that you're actually looking at this through the lens of what else was going on in the legal system, because that is the true definition of weaponization. If they were taking things out of their congressional duties that were supposed to go to fortify democracy, and instead using that as a veneer to try to ignite criminal prosecutions that, or even feed criminal prosecutions that weren't a consequence of following the facts and the law, but that were just a way to blunderbuss their targets. And so, if one of the problems I found, and this is a real intricate area of law, destroying committee records is illegal. However, the committee can determine what committee records are.
Right.
And so in this case, they could just say, oh, yes, well, we've just determined that the Steve Bannon files are all not committee record. Anything we saved is a committee record. Anything we destroyed isn't. And it makes you wonder whether or not maybe some of those laws need to be revisited by Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune.
This goes to why we need Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune. By the way, even Ed Martin, the fact that he's getting this information from Matt Gaetz, they're investigating it, but Matt Gaetz was able to tell him stuff about the records he may not have known. He's knowing now because now he has full access to it, about the Steve Bannon file being empty of evidence. So I'm explaining why things go slow, guys. That's going to be a theme of the rest of all these things. This is why it goes slow. Steve Bannon, who, by the way, he used to run, back when I worked for Breitbart, I worked for Big Hollywood. That was my first political writing gig under the great Andrew Breitbart. But Steve Bannon was running early on Breitbart. So he's technically an ally. I disagree with him on some things, but I wish I could show you, remember, he served prison time for his beliefs. And now we find out from Matt Gaetz, his entire folder, the actual evidence against him, was empty. It was empty, and he served time. So, let him, and my encouragement to all of you, he went to prison for this country, and he did not whine. He said, I'm going to fight. It didn't affect him one bit. It didn't ruin him. He didn't start crying. He stood up, and he loves the country so much that even when Democrats put him in prison, it doesn't break him. That's my encouragement. He's a hero to me, regardless of what you think of Steve Bannon, and I think very highly of him, but I'm just saying, regardless, you can respect that. I respect that, because one day we may all go to prison. In fact, if Democrats ever win again, a whole bunch of us are going to prison. So that's why you never put an X next to a Democrat. But these Democrats, what Ed Martin's going to uncover about Adam Schiff, the J6 committee, the weaponization of the government, it's bigger than we thought. I know we have an imagination about the deep state being huge. The actual details are so intricate, like that empty Bannon folder. You have no idea. Like going and checking. Did you know that Charlie Kirk was swept up in it for renting a van to help patriots get to that January 6th celebration?
To ensure that you don't have the destruction of this stuff going forward. Are you confident with what you're able to get access to and assess that you're going to be able to very thoroughly make your prosecutorial judgments?
Well, look, I've been involved with our mutual friend Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, and she has gone, and I hope people have tracked what I call the birthday of the Russia hoax, which was revealed by Tulsi. It actually was born on Friday, December 9th, 2016, and it was done by the Obama White House in a special meeting, aided by the Washington Post. This is in the record. This is indisputable. This is not like me and you debating.
By the way, born in 2016 in December, but we only just found out about it a month ago from Tulsi Gabbard. That's why nothing's been done. We only just now have Ed Martin, our special prosecutor, on the job.
We go forward from there, and you say that was the Russia hoax that was used to almost cripple the Trump administration by design. Then you go forward to 2020, and you say, what happened on January 6th and afterwards? And to your point, Matt, what they did with this select committee was they weaponized the power of Congress. They were aided by the media, and they were often aided by the Article III courts and the prosecutors. And they took the hoax and they pounded out a message. And frankly, they brainwashed 40% of the country, 50% of the country. There's still people are still sick with it because they were lied. So what is our goal? One is to hold people that do things that are destructive and against the law accountable. I want to do that. We're going to do that. I promise you. But we're also trying to get to the truth. And so when you have a Tulsi Gabbard who can say, here was some of the truth, I can tell you, we've been going through the records, emails of this Department of Justice from the Biden era, and we're seeing who was doing what. I'll give you a quick example. They put everybody on January 6th that was arrested, minus maybe 100, onto the terrorism watch list. And when you said, wait a second, you're on the terrorism watch list, why? You're supposed to be a terrorist or a member of a terrorist group or another criteria. The other criteria was, we just wanted to put you on. And when you were pardoned by Donald Trump, all 1,500 plus went off the terrorism watch list. Well, that just proves it wasn't a terrorism watch list. It's a list to punish you when you go to the airport.
So that you cannot fly if you're on a terrorist watch list. This is Democrat. They're going to have to pay for that. He said important two things too. He said, I want the prosecutions, I want justice, but I also want the truth. Now, the problem is those are reversed. We're all asking for justice. The truth has to come out first. That's why this show is important, to help get the truth out, because you can't have a prosecution until the truth gets out. So they have to completely file intricate, detailed, the kind of proof and data and information and evidence that can hold up to an opposing lawyer's scrutiny, right? You don't want it all to fall apart in court. So you have to cross your T's, dot your I's. Here's John Solomon with Charlie Kirk.
You want to talk about an insurrection? This is an insurrection against the American people that was thwarted at multiple times.
I sat across from an intelligence agent, now retired, very senior. He looked me in the eye and said, the truth of the matter is, we took the playbook for psychological operations and information warfare that we would use against our enemies, and we turned it against the American people.
That's a high level intelligence officer told John Solomon that we do our psychological brainwashing warfare on other countries to manipulate elections for statecraft because it's cheaper than war. And they turned it against the American people. Remember what Ed Martin said in that last clip. The Democrat Party used media to brainwash 40, 50, 60% of America. And on every Democrat that you know, it worked. And it will take forever for us to uncast that spell, to get them out of that cult. That's what John Solomon's talking about with this intelligence agent. They took those psyops and ran it widespread against all of America because they really wanted to keep America safe from Trump.
To undo the 2016 election and to make sure they didn't elect Donald Trump in 2020. Now, that is a senior intelligence officer with more than 30 years of experience, a patriot who served in some of the most dangerous parts of the world. And he understood that the tactics of making something fake look real were ripped right out of our intelligence communities. Our intelligence agencies not only harmed Donald Trump, they were harming the American public, the national security interests of the American public.
Yeah, not just the American public. Steve Bannon went to jail. Many of us got our YouTube channels canceled for it, costing me millions of dollars. So the cost is widespread. Here's more on how widespread that Democrat propaganda is. Some of you go to therapy. This is Pamela Garfield Jaeger. She is Truth the Therapist. She said, I recently attended a 3-credit professional training called, quote, The Impact of Donald Trump on America, a cultic studies perspective, claiming Trump is the cult. Now, these people are actually in the cult, saying Donald Trump is a cult, which instructed therapists to hate their Trump-supporting patients. The course was held on August 7th of 2025. She went to this meeting. I was taught that if you voted for Trump, you're part of a cult on a national scale that presents an image of bringing the country back to white majority and white power. This is why therapy, which is a soft science, there are so many quacks in therapy. You can screw your life up. You go to a wrong therapist. It's almost like a pastor. Anyone can get ordained as a pastor. You go to a wrong pastor and he can screw your life into the ground. It's not that therapy or pastors. Same thing with marriage. You marry the wrong person, they'll screw your life into the ground. Being pro these institutions does not give them a pass. This quack, any therapist that teaches them to hate their Trump-loving customers or patients, clients, should lose their licensing if the license means anything. And maybe what they're saying is the license doesn't mean anything. Here's the final bit of good news, because I thought I'd leave you with a smile in our opening today. Breaking: IRS began criminal probe into the Clinton Foundation in 2019. Oh, good. Thanks, IRS. But then suddenly stopped, memos show. What happened in 2019 that caused them to stop the investigation, the probe into the Clinton Foundation by the IRS? This is Democrats with their two-tiered justice system. They want full investigations on Republican or MAGA, and then anything Democrat, it's just we bury it We put out a different narrative. This is the true lying brainwashing that happened to this country. This is my theory behind Biden's win, by the way, in 2020, far more indicative of stealing votes or machines or anything like that. Far more indicative was the mass brainwashing by media 24/7, full on against Trump. I believe created those 15 million votes. I think that's how powerful brainwashing media is. So you don't even need to go and look for what machine was used, what mules stuffed what ballots. I don't think those numbers can add up to the power of what every media outlet, university, and big tech can do to the human mind in brainwashing it against Trump and for Biden, because you have half of America looking at Biden going, yeah, I'll vote for that corpse. I'm dug in exile. God bless.